Good afternoon, my friends. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can be with you forever. I'm going to be leaving my email in the description, so if you want to email me and book a session with me for any other kind of involvement, what have you, with music production lessons, spiritual guidance, tarot readings, astrology chart readings, I will be there for you and we can book a session. So I'm going to get right into the topic at hand, which has been on my mind the past few days, especially dealing with, a lot of conspiracy theories that are going out right now. But not necessarily conspiracy theories. This is kind of a narrative that's propagated throughout just general conversation amongst a lot of people for many, many years. And this is about the concept of reptilian overlords, right? Which is kind of a humorous thing for people who are not really into that kind of realm of conspiracy theories or aliens or what have you. And there is this belief that there are these reptilian overlords that are controlling the narrative and controlling people and turning everyone into slaves for this reptilian system, so to speak. Which, if you have a modicum of general rationality, you can kind of safely assert that that's probably not reality. But, as someone who is generally open-minded but try to be reductive in terms of my process and trying to think rationally and logically, the possibility of there being a reptilian overlord of some kind, could happen. I don't personally believe such things exist, and for many reasons, because you have to understand that these things, these projections that people put out there, and these assumptions about how things work. And there's this YouTuber, I forget, she's this transgender communist YouTuber. It's like starts with a C. It's like contrivances or I don't know, something weird. But I watched one of her videos about the capitalist system and how we need to unite together to overthrow the lizard overlords, which are basically a humorous take on capitalists, so to speak, these big CEOs of huge corporations that are taking advantage of people, the labor, the workers in their corporations, so to speak, and as well the consumers who are purchasing these products, which are generally not exactly to our best benefit if we are looking into mass-produced, disposable trash media, so to speak, that has no intrinsic value whatsoever. But I'm going to go more into the specifics of how she used specifically the reptilian narrative, which a lot of people use, even Alex Jones, and it's just a term that's sort of thrown out a lot, especially as an anti-Semitic slur as well, which is problematic, obviously. But I'm not going to really get into that because I don't really feel like talking about anti-Semitism is particularly beneficial in any way. But the thing about the reptilian brain and the reptilian overlord idea is that we need to understand that it's not a concept that's external to ourselves. A lot of the people that utilize this term like to think of an other, an external threat, an external presence of this reptilian that is controlling people and trying to enslave us. When we look at scientific evidence and biological evidence, evolutionary evidence, we understand that our brains and where we came from were reptiles. Reptiles were the first land creatures, so to speak, that walked on land when they came out of the water evolutionarily. So after that, we evolved from reptiles into mammals and from mammals into humans. So when you look into our brains, the reptilian aspect of our brain is still there. The reptilian brain is still there. It's the core of our brain, actually, right? After the what's it called? I'm really bad with words today. The medulla oblongata. That's what it was. So after that, you have the medulla oblongata in the back of the brain, which controls, the heart, the breathing, the central nervous system, the general functions of the body that you are not in direct control of, right? So to speak, there are things that are happening in your body that are going on autopilot that you have no real, mental control over. Just like I can control my arm doing this, but I can't control how my heart is going to pump, constantly. It's doing that automatically through this other part of the brain. Around that is the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is the aspect of the enslavement that people are so afraid of, this other external force of the reptilian. But we need to understand that this reptilian brain, this reptilian self, actually exists within us all. We are all part of this reptile overlord narrative, so to speak, because we all have the potential to become one of those entities, because at the core of ourselves is the reptilian brain, or we can call that the ego on a more surface level or different way of explaining it, because the reptilian brain is all about survival. It's all about, finding food, surviving, trying to procreate. It's all about sexual gratification, bodily gratification, any kind of instant gratification is the reptilian brain enacting that idea. It's also dealing with that primal sense of competition, of asserting your dominance over other species, right? That's the part of evolutionary process of early species, was the idea that you needed to level up yourself by putting other people down, or not other people, but other animals, so to speak, that you are asserting your dominance in that way. That's all rooted in the reptilian brain. Then as we have evolved, we've developed the mammalian brain, which sits around the reptilian brain. And the mammalian brain is dealing with our emotions, our nurturing aspects, our ability to bond with other people of our same species, right? These are all mammalian constructs. Reptilians don't have bonds with their offspring or with other reptiles in their species or their family. It's completely non-existent. Their whole modicum of life is based around survival of the fittest, finding food, eating as much food as possible. It's a completely it's a life form that's completely dependent off of consumption and needing to survive no matter what the costs are, right? And then we get to the mammalian. That's when we start developing bonds and empathy and emotions that push us beyond the concepts of survival and the ego. And then we get the frontal cortex, which is rationality and reason and a deeper understanding of those mammalian constructs of emotion. So the deeper aspects of emotion, the more complicated aspects of love and happiness and sadness and despair and joy and excitement, and also the aspect of being able to communicate more effectively, right? Animals that communicate, they have their own little specific call or tick that they say, cats meow, dogs bark, and humans can develop languages to be more specific and rigid in terms of defining things in order for other people to understand them. And that's what the frontal cortex does. But we need to understand that at the core of all of this, outside of the medulla oblongata, is the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is the source of where we are going to be living, and the source of that is procreation, sexual drive, sexual energy. Where is our sexual energy going, and how are we transmuting that and utilizing that? Because it needs to be fed. The same thing with food, our hunger, our greed, and especially the 7 sins, if you want to talk about that allegorically in the Bible, is all coming from the reptilian brain that we all have within ourselves. Every human is inherently flawed in that sense, because we have this strongly built ego that's been there since the first animals that walked on land from the water, even probably before that, obviously. So this reptilian overlord, this reptilian race of people that we want to, there's almost this idea that we want this to exist because it detracts from our own responsibilities in our life. Because if we can blame these reptilians for all our problems, then we can live in the delusion that we are not reptiles ourselves. And that's kind of the main problem I have with that whole narrative, is not the fact that maybe there are evil reptiles controlling everything, but it's also feeding into a narrative that we are completely irresponsible and we are completely at the whims to these reptiles, and that some other external force is going to save us from this. The reality is that there is a reptile inside all of us that will consume and destroy and kill and eat and be overcome with greed and lust and all this other, disgusting shit that's there. And we need to make sure that we have that in check, because we have this new part of our brain that hasn't been developed as much, and we can either stay within that reptile brain and let that be the controller of our destiny and let that be the one who is dictating where we want to go, because don't forget the reptile brain can hack into the newly developed parts of our brain, and where those brains came from is kind of difficult to understand, so I won't get into those kinds of theories. It's easy just to say it's evolution, but evolution happens because of choice, right? The animals have to have a sort of willingness to evolve in order to actually overcome the hindrances of their race, or not race, but species rather. So the reptile brain can hack into that newer mainframe that has been built over time. And so that's why we have a lot of people who commit certain acts that are questionable to either themselves or to others, and then their frontal cortex, which is dealing with rationality and logic, can rationalize why they did those things, right? It's like I'm thinking about how I'm going to go on Tinder and start having sex with as many girls as possible, and my brain will rationalize that because, hey, this feels good. On a simple level, I can do that, or I can rationalize it and say, hey, like, I did a lot of work this day, and I was really productive today. I can sort of slack off and do this, or maybe, I've been having a rough month. I just got out of a breakup. I'm fully entitled to just fuck around with girls without any consequences. I'm perfectly fine, or I haven't gotten any STDs lately ever, so I'm probably not going to get them tonight again. You can keep rationalizing these toxic activities, or you can rationalize stealing from someone, right? Because you want to survive. That's the reptilian brain inside of you that wants to survive no matter the cost. And it'll hack into your brain so you can rationalize why you did that. It's like, well, that guy doesn't deserve it. I deserve it. I've been having a rough month. I deserve to have good things. Why does he deserve it? I should just take it. I'm going to take it. And then you rationalize it, even though it's not the right thing to do, because the reptilian brain, the reptilian overlord, has hacked into your brain and has made you commit acts that you didn't really want to do, but you did them anyway. And I'm sure there's plenty of instances where you, including myself, where you've been in a situation where you're doing something, let's say you're doing a drug of some kind, and because the reptilian brain wants to feel good, it wants to feel that egotistical rush of satisfaction in the moment, in the present moment, right? It's very much fixated on, I need to feel good now. It doesn't matter if I feel good tomorrow or whatever. That's irrelevant. The reptile brain wants to feel good now. So it'll rationalize, but you will have a dichotomy, as sort of this, contradiction within yourself, where you're, like, let's say you're addicted to alcohol. You're an alcoholic and you're about to start doing some shots. Maybe at some point in your frontal cortex, you're thinking like, oh no, I don't want to do this. This is bad. I'm going to wake up hungover. I'm going to regret this. This is bad. I shouldn't do this. And then in the meantime, you're doing the shots. because your reptile brain has hacked into you, hacked into your body, hacked into yourself, and you have no control over it. So this is an aspect that we need to think about when we're trying to think about, oh, these reptilian overlords are going to take over, and we need to have this external force, get rid of them. The reality is, have you vanquished that reptilian from yourself? Have you harnessed it and controlled it to your own benefit? Or are you being controlled by the reptilian right now, and you are rationalizing that reptilian brain? Because that means you are a slave to your own brain, to your own ego, right? And that's the whole point, is that the ego should serve you. You shouldn't serve the ego. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so it can be with you forever. And I'll see you next time. Peace.